Hello and welcome. Today we're going to jump right into a really powerful passage from the Quran's second chapter, Al-Baqarah. It's a section that walks us through this incredible cycle of divine favor, human weakness, and ultimately the path to real guidance.
But let's kick things off with a question that this passage really forces you to think about. When it's all said and done, on that final day of reckoning, can anyone else, a prophet, a saint, even someone you love, step in and take the heat for your actions? Let's see what the Quran has to say.
So to get to the bottom of that, we're going to walk through verses 47 to 53 of Surah Al-Baqarah. We'll read them one by one, and then we'll unpack the big ideas they're presenting.
Right off the bat, the passage begins with a direct address. It's a call to remember, a reminder of a special status, of immense blessings that were given. And this really sets the stage for everything that follows.
And boom, immediately after that reminder of favor comes this incredibly stark warning. This verse, right here, is the core principle of the whole passage. A day of absolute, total, individual accountability. No stand-ins, no one pleading your case, no bailouts.
Now the Quran gets specific, recounting a major blessing, the escape from this brutal, systematic oppression under Pharaoh. But you gotta notice that last line, it's so important. The Quran frames this amazing salvation not just as a gift, but as a profound test. You see, the real challenge wasn't just surviving the hardship, it was about how they would act once they were free.
And the story keeps going, with one of the most famous miracles of all time, the parting of the sea. Just imagine it, a moment of impossible rescue, and watching the definitive end of your oppressors right before your very eyes.
But this is where the story takes a sharp turn. While their leader, Moses, is away, there's a huge failure. I mean, despite these unbelievable favors they had just witnessed, they turned to worshiping an idol, a really serious mistake.
And yet, even after a transgression that big, the door to mercy wasn't slammed shut. Forgiveness was given, and the Quran tells us exactly why: to inspire gratitude.
And the passage wraps up by showing us the tools that were given to stop these kinds of errors from happening again. The scripture and this powerful idea called the criterion. Basically, a moral compass designed to make sure people could always find their way.
Okay, so let's shift gears into our analysis and see how all these pieces fit together. First up, let's look closer at this theme of divine favor. The Quran isn't just listing old stories, it's framing them as these huge blessings that come with some serious responsibility.
So the main point here is that these aren't small favors we're talking about. This is a special status, a miraculous rescue from what was essentially genocide, and a divine intervention that completely wiped out their enemy. It's just an overwhelming display of God's power and mercy.
But here's what's so fascinating. The Quran calls this incredible rescue a great trial. It makes you wonder, right? How do you act after you've been saved? When things are easy and safe, does that lead you to be grateful and obedient? Or does it lead to forgetfulness and maybe even arrogance? That's the test.
And that question leads us right into the heart of the conflict in this passage. Because despite all these undeniable blessings, a moment of deep failure happens. The test of gratitude? Well, it wasn't passed.
Now check this out. There's a subtle but really important detail in the Arabic here. The verb that's used, itahastam, it doesn't just point to the act of worship. It actually points more to the act of making or constructing the calf. This little detail emphasizes that it was a deliberate, conscious choice, a physical act of creating an idol, which just makes the whole thing even more serious.
So this failure, it becomes the perfect backdrop for this timeless, unchangeable rule that's laid out in verse 48. I mean, if even the people who received such massive favors could slip up, what does that mean for every single one of us on the Day of Judgment?
On that day, the Quran basically closes every single possible loophole you could think of. You can't have someone else take your place, you can't have someone else plead your case, you can't buy your way out of it, and nope, no one is coming to help you. Your record is yours and yours alone.
And this principle of no intercession, it's not a minor point. The Quran considers believing in it to be a form of associating partners with God, which is one of the most serious sins. It really drives home the idea that the connection between a person and God is direct, with no go-betweens when it comes to your final accountability. So after setting up this very sobering reality of human failure and ultimate accountability, where does the passage leave us? Well, it pivots from this stern warning to a message of hope and a practical solution, the gift of guidance. Mercy is shown once again, but it's not a blank check. The forgiveness itself has a clear purpose, to reignite that feeling of gratitude. It's a chance to hit the reset button, to remember the source of all your blessings,
and to get back on the right path.
And to make sure that return is even possible, a tool is provided. The Quran calls it Al-Furqan, which translates to the criterion. Think of it as the ultimate moral and ethical compass, the standard you can use to clearly tell the difference between truth and falsehood, between right and wrong.
And this criterion wasn't just some vague idea, it was given right alongside the scripture. Together they form a complete package, a whole framework for guidance. The scripture gives you the laws and the stories, and the criterion gives you the wisdom and the spiritual insight to apply them correctly, to see things as they really are.
And you know, that really leaves us with a final thought. This passage takes us full circle. Favor is given, a test is failed, accountability is made absolute, but then forgiveness and guidance are offered as the way forward. So, if the criterion, that ability to know right from wrong, is the key, then the question for all of us becomes, what are we doing every single day to keep it sharp?